Hello, welcome to Evangelistic Apologetics. This is an introduction to systematic Christian worldview. This is Daiqing Yuan, your host and teacher. And today we are studying the part 1, which is the truth of truth and the theology of creation. The idea is to find out what is the definition and standard of truth and to evaluate whether or not the theory of creation could be the truth. And the first part of that, we talk about how should we think. How should we think? What's logic? What's behind the logic? And what is faith, reason, and experience? And the second part is what is truth? And we have reached the conclusion of the definition for truth. It is an accurate reflection of the objective world in the subjective world. So if you want to define what is true, well, something true reflects something real accurately. So what is real exists objectively. That means it does not care if I think about it or not. It just is there. Okay? Whether or not you think the sun or moon exist doesn't matter, they exist. So they are objective. They are unrelated to whether or not your mind, the subjective world, thinks about it. Okay? But since we do have a mind, humans, we are thinking, so we do have a mind. And we have a subjective world. And when the subjective world tries to reflect the objective world, and if that reflection is accurate, we say that is true. So this is the definition of truth. But what about the two worlds, and do they have levels? Yes, we know there is a natural world, whatever is material, visible, governed by the natural laws. Something may not be visible, like field or electrons, microscopic things. Something may be too large, cosmological. But anyway, they are governed by natural laws. It's a natural world. They should be known mainly through experience. You can touch it, you can feel it. This is solid, this is air, and so on. And by that, you get science. Science is the accurate reflection of the natural world in the subjective world. And what about there's a human world? The human level is both natural and supernatural. We have something material, we have something immaterial, we have something visible, the body, we have something invisible, the soul and spirit. And if that's the case, then there's something special to humans. Well, yes, we can reason. We are different from the animals. We can reason beyond just mere experience. So the reason is our major human way of reflection, our own world. And reason results in philosophy. The word philosophy means the love of wisdom. So you want wisdom and you reason, then you understand the human world. And the highest level is the supernatural world. The supernatural world is not governed by the natural law because, well, the natural law was defined, designed, and implemented by something supernatural, and it can supersede it. So the supernatural world, somebody may say, I don't know if it exists. Fine. But at least you put it there as a possibility. Okay? And you consider the knowledge of that, since that one cannot be measured either by experience or reason, so that is something you can only understand by faith. If there is a real supernatural being, and if the being reveals to the underlings about the greater spiritual, invisible, supernatural world, then if you believe by faith, then you have an understanding of the supernatural being. And the supernatural being, including God and angels, etc., and so on. So your understanding is your theology, the word about God. Okay. Now, this middle word, I have to make up a new word, called it a midjective word, between objective and subjective, because these three means of knowledge, they exist objectively in human beings. When we are born, when we grow up, we naturally have these capacities of knowledge. But they are part of our subjective world. They are not only the means to know, they are also part of the knowledge itself. So I have to make it a mid-objective world. But we have seen the motion from the objective world to the subjective world, and that is called knowledge. Okay? Knowing, the process of knowing is reflecting the objective world through the mid-objective world to the subjective world. Now the next question is, how about the up and down interactions? If you want to know about God, who is supernatural, he may or may not exist. If you have faith, you know. But what if you don't have faith yet? How do you know about the existence of God or not? Well, the way to know that is through the disciplines, through philosophy and science, by reason and by experience. And then that will support your faith. Okay? Everything people say or think is involved with faith. That's because when you think, you use logic, right? In logic, you have the first premise, such as all men die. And then the second premise, such as I am a man. And the conclusion, I die. Okay? You are using reason by using logic. You are using experience, such as I'm a man. That is definitely true. But the first premise about all men die, that is something actually you accept by faith. Okay? You referenced experience, you have observed some. You used reason, you used induction from specific to general, and the result is you have a general statement which you accept by faith. Okay? Everybody have to involve something by faith. The question is, are you honest about it? Do you admit that you involved faith? Or do you say, I only use experience and reason and nothing about faith, and therefore I'm superior, more reliable, more scientific, or whatever? Well, if you're honest, you wouldn't say that, because you do use something by faith. So my suggestion is, let's use comprehensive epistemology, use all three means, and be honest in whatever we used. Okay? Don't say something untrue when you use faith and you say you haven't used it. Okay? So be honest, but on the other hand, we do recognize we live in a time when we're living at the end of the age of science, or the age of reason, or the modern world. We are in the beginning of the postmodern world, where people don't believe in faith, don't believe in even reason, we don't believe in experience. We are in the time of transition. So at this time, what people value as something you can presume as the first premise, we value the lower ones, experience and reason, and not the high ones. Long ago, it's not the case. Okay? In the time of Middle Ages, people put faith first, and then reason later and experience later. But scientific world, we put reason first, and then right now, postmodern, we put experience first. So we understand we live in this time. So in order to think about the idea about God, we use the lower means, reason and experience. Okay? And we derive things about faith, and then that can provide a guide or guidance for our faith. It does not define it, nor does it force our faith, but it serves as a guidance. And so let's do that. Today, because of that, we need to go to the arguments for the existence of God. Arguments. Okay, did I misspell it? The arguments. Okay. All right. The arguments for the existence of God historically existed in the church for many, many years and with many, many forms. And today's theologians and philosophers of religion have kind of clarified and summarized these into four kinds. There are the first kind, first of all, is called the cosmological argument, or the argument from creation. The second is called the teleological argument, or the argument from design. And the third one is called the axiological argument, or the argument from moral law. And the fourth one is called the ontological argument, or the argument from being. Okay, so let's go over them one by one. Okay, and the first one is called the argument from design. Argument from design. Okay, and remember what we're doing here is we're trying to lead you into a right theology by using philosophy and science. So we will use data or established conclusion from below. Okay, and at the end we actually will try to reach this conclusion that maybe not only there's bottom-up motion, there is top-down motion too. So your theology will influence your philosophy and your science. Right? Seems intuitively correct. But right now we will deal with this, the argument from design, or rather we call it the cosmological argument. Okay, and this argument says in the modern form like this. Okay, it says that the first premise, okay, the first premise says everything that has a beginning seems to have a creator. The second premise says the universe seems to have a beginning. And the conclusion would be, naturally, the universe should have a creator. Okay? So you are using the logical reasoning. Everything that has beginning has a beginning. Okay? You're talking about everything that has beginning seems to have a creator. Now this thing is something you received by what? You accept by faith. Because you don't know, you haven't checked everything yet. But that seems to be something reasonable to believe in. And the universe seems to have a beginning. This is something you received from today's science. Okay? And the conclusion is, of course, you're just using reason, natural being. You have a great set, you have a smaller set, so whatever attribute in the big set is shared by the smaller set. Okay? So we need to go into detail. How do you reach that? Everything that has beginning seems to have a creator. Well, how do you reach this big conclusion? Well, you start from the specific, and then you draw a general conclusion, right? This is how you reason. You start from specific. Such as, okay, I have a beginning. I have a birthday. You have a beginning. You have a birthday. All right? And we have we use a quote, creators, our parents. Right? A Christian may say, well, the parents give our body, God gives our soul. Okay, so you may say they are not actual creators, they are partial creators. God is the final one. Okay, it takes three, okay, to make a person: God, Father, and Mother. Okay, and but anyway, we have creators. There's something that generates us. We may use that word loosely, creator or creators. Okay, your car has a beginning because it has a date when it exited the production plant, okay, and it has a creator, well, the car company and the people, okay, and your house has a beginning, right? It has a day when it's finished and it handed the key to you, and that creator is its builder. Right? And everything that you can think of that has a beginning have creator or creators. They have a they have a cause. Everything seems to have a cause. And if you want to trace that cause, it may have a beginning. So finally you have to trace to something is called first cause. Right? The first cause is something that does not have a cause. Okay? You need a first cause because without the first cause, you do not really know because you just push the ignorance one step further and further and further until you reach something that does not have beginning. It's always there, right? And it's necessary. It's also sufficient because if it's not, then it's like you look everything that's transparent. Okay, only things that's not transparent. You can see. But if everything is transparent, then seeing is like not seeing. Right? So you will never know anything. So we need to have a first cause. This is original form is looking for the first cause, which does not have a cause. It has always been there. So God is the first cause of everything. Okay, because it's always been there. But today we're not using that form. We're just using everything that has a beginning seems to have a creator. Well, we have found many specifics that has beginning which have creator. So we draw the general statement that everything that has beginning seems to have a creator. What the word seems is putting there to demonstrate the incompleteness of this reasoning. The induction is incomplete. Right? The induction is incomplete because you have done specific things. You have not exhaustively examined everything. Right? So everybody, when you reason, you always start from something specific, and you cannot be exhaustive because you are finite. Okay? Therefore, when you draw a general situation from an induction, you should demonstrate the humility, saying, my conclusion is only something that seems so. Okay? So everything that has a beginning seems to have a creator. Okay? That's reasonable because everything you have examined is like that. Okay? And and this thing you recognize that you accept it by faith. When you inductively derive something, you accept it by faith. And it is accepted as a reasonable faith. Okay? A faith is something that is acceptable when it is reasonable. When it's reasonable, that means it has not met a counter-argument, counter-example. Okay? So when you have a general deduction, you do the deduction. Okay, the deduction is from general to a specific. Now this is called deduction. Okay, when you do the deduction, then it may be confirming it, or it may be, how do you say, refuting it. Okay, proving the general statement as either right or false. Okay, if it proves it right, then you increase your faith to your general statement. If it has been proven wrong, then you have to cut something. If it proves wrong, you have to cut it and say make another test within a certain range and modify your statement. Okay, so before you have found a counter argument, this is what I call the counter argument. Counter argument or example, or actually more like the example. Before you reach the counter one, you have full reason, actually you should hold on to your inducted general statement. Okay, so that's how humans do science. We make experiments and we observe the world, and then we propose theories. That's a general statement. And then after that, we do experiments. And if the experiments proves the theory is wrong, then we modify it. If it doesn't, then we increase our faith in that theory. And the more the experiment is to prove it's right, the more faith we have it. Still, everything scientific is, if it's a general statement, it's something accepted by faith, based on induction. But if it has many more confirmations, then that faith can be regarded as a fact. Okay, so this is how you do it. So similarly here, when you make observation of the world, everything that has a beginning seems to have a creator, okay, or a cause, okay, or causes, whatever there might be reason that causes it. So if that's so, then let's use it on the universe. The universe seems to have a beginning. And where do we get that? Well, that's the conclusion of modern science. What's the most popular idea about today's cosmological theory? The Big Bang theory, right? In the Big Bang theory, you have you believe that the world is like line, the slanted lines, and they seem to go back to the same point. Even though the modern time, the science is limited in time, but by the observation now we see that the universe seems to go back to the one point, and that's one point. Whatever the beginning is, no matter how long it is, there's a beginning, right? This was not always like so. The humankind at first always thought the universe had a beginning. Okay, they always thought there's a creator or creators, or in the East we think just somebody and that we don't know how exists that created, and in the West it's God. Okay, and but in modern time. There had been a time when the Newtonian physics actually gave us reason to suspect maybe the universe is like this, because we observe the universe like that and they are straight lines. So if straight lines never meet, that means there's a possibility that the universe is always there. Okay, so the so-called steady state theory for the cosmos, and is a result of the Newtonian physics. Okay, so Isaac Newton, okay, his physics is based on the presumption that there is a three-dimensional space, straightforward Euclidean, and there is a one-dimensional time. It's a flow, uniform flow. And space and time are not related. Okay? And it's based on that assumption about space and time. There is the Newtonian physics. And in that Newtonian physics, you can see that the theory of gravitation, it governs the world. Okay? And like the solar system, if you have the gravitational law and all of the planets circle around this, the sun, and if somebody put it there and gave the first push, then later it will always keep the steady state. Okay? So Newton himself, he believed that God must exist, and he must give the first push. Okay? But after that, he left the world run by the natural law. So the Newton's physics is the reason behind the idea called deism. Okay? Deism believes the existence of God. Okay? Die, it's a God, and Deus. And but God's effect in this world is limited. He just gave the first. He is the first cause. He gave the first push, and later he is uninvolved. And so everything is by natural law. And that's deism, but that's Newtonian physics. However, Newtonian physics has been proven limited or false in certain situations for high speed and for microscopic situation. And for high speed and cosmological size, we need the idea of relativity, which is found by Einstein, okay, Albert Einstein. And Einstein's relativity pushed people to think that the world is not like straight lines. It's like the tilted lines, and it seems to go to one beginning. Okay? And that idea is called the Big Bang theory. Okay? And once people made some predictions and they confirmed it with a few experiments, which we will help you to investigate that, then right now most people believe in Big Bang theory. Okay? Now, if you believe in the Big Bang, then the universe has a beginning, right? So when everything that has a beginning seems to have a creator and the universe seems to have a beginning, what do you conclude? The first one is by faith, but before it reached a counter example, such as people say, oh, the universe may not have a beginning, but you don't know it. Okay, so it's not a counter argument, it's something to research about. So before you reach a counter argument, it's reasonable to believe in the first premise. And now if you believe in the current state of natural science, which supports the Big Bang theory, which says the universe has a beginning, then what is your reasonable conclusion? The universe should have a creator. And that creator is defined as God. So that is the first argument for the existence of God, the argument from, actually from design, not from design, from creation. Okay, amen.